everybody. We're just showing a little love for each other. That's kind of what we do on this side of the house.
We give each other flowers.
We do. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Oh boy, I want to start today by highlighting the Trump administration's decision to jeopardize the ability for millions of Americans and over 1.7 million New Yorkers to put food on their table. On November 1st, New Yorkers and people across the country will lose access to their SNAP food benefits. The Trump administration is refusing to use available funds to continue providing this food assistance to families as its shutdown of the federal government resumes. While Trump is willing to waste millions of taxpayer dollars on golf trips and tear down part of the White House for his vanity project, he is unwilling to ensure that 40 million Americans, including children, can eat. It's despicable and completely unnecessary. SNAP is a most effective anti-hunger program. Withholding these resources is an attack on working families across our country. This is yet another example of Trump's willingness to harm working-class Americans. Lives are at stake, and the Trump administration must follow through on its duty to release funds to continue SNAP benefits for the millions of Americans who depend on them. Now, let's talk about our stated agenda. First, we'll vote on the following land use items. The Jamaica Neighborhood Plan, the city's largest neighborhood rezoning in over 2 decades, that will deliver nearly 12,000 new homes, nearly 42 of which will be permanently affordable in my district and the districts of council members Natasha Williams and Jim Gennaro. The plan spans 230 blocks in Southeast Queens, will map the largest mandatory inclusionary housing, or MIH, area ever created, and generate over 2 million square feet of new commercial and community facility space with 7,000 new jobs. The council secured over $413 million in new community investments, including for water and sewer infrastructure, parks and open space, transportation and public realm improvements, public health and safety resources, and cultural and educational institutions. As a longtime resident of Jamaica and a former co-chair of the Jamaica Now Leadership Council, this neighborhood rezoning is deeply important to me and my community. Our Jamaica is a thriving and vibrant community whose success is pivotal to the prosperity of Southeast Queens and our entire city. Its growth and transformation to a bustling residential, commercial, and transportation hub for local residents with opportunities to advance careers, build homes, and raise families has always been a top priority. I'm so thankful to Councilmember Williams, who led a community planning process for over 2 years, engaging with residents and community stakeholders to shape the vision and future of downtown Jamaica. The final version of the Jamaica Neighborhood Plan, with its level of neighborhood investment, housing affordability, and targeted commitments, would not have been possible without the work of this council and the community to negotiate for the public goods needed. I also want to thank the Council's entire Planning and Land Use Division for their extraordinary work on this historic neighborhood rezoning, as well as our partnership with the Department of City Planning. H&H River Commons, 1225 Girard Avenue, will facilitate the redevelopment of a portion of the NYC Health and Hospitals campus on Girard Avenue in Councilmember Althea Stevens' district. It will allow construction of a 17-story mixed-use building with approximately 98 supportive units for single adults and approximately 230 affordable units for households earning less than 80% of the area median income. The development will also include approximately 6,000 square feet of community facility space, approximately 7,500 square feet of open space, specific floors allocated for clinical operations by H&H, and 75 parking spaces for staff and patients. Kingsbridge Armory redevelopments will finally facilitate the adaptive reuse of the Kingsbridge Armory building in Councilmember Pierina Sanchez's district and the construction of a new 16-story residential building, including 500 permanently affordable units and ground floor retail on the adjacent National Guard site. This redevelopment will create several new uses for the Armory, including but not limited to a community facility and cultural space, office space, and a 17,000-person live event venue. ICOS Senior Living, the disposition of city-owned property to facilitate the development of affordable housing for seniors in Councilmember Tiffany Caban's district. This project is a result of the 2019 Seniors First RFP to redevelop city-owned parking lots and will result in a new 13-story mixed-use building with a total of 167 income-restricted apartments for seniors, as well as community facility and commercial space. Domino Site B, an application to make several design changes to an existing large-scale development in Councilmember Lincoln Ressler's district. It adds over 200 additional units, slightly increasing the tower height, removing a sky bridge, and adding balconies. 74 Bogart Street rezoning will facilitate the development of a new 7-story art storage facility in Councilmember Jennifer Gutierrez's district. Taylor Wooten Estates will facilitate the development of 21 3-story buildings with approximately 63 affordable co-op units and recreation space in Councilmember Chris Banks' district. The council will vote on disapproval of the Ovies Place application for revocable consent to operate a sidewalk cafe in Councilmember Lewis's district. We'll also vote on the following finance items. Resolution 1083, sponsored by Councilmember Justin Brannan, would authorize an increase for the amount to be expended annually in 7 business improvement districts and 1 special assessment district to set the date, time, and place for the public hearing on the expenditure increase. Preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannan concerns the establishment of the Coney Island bid in Brooklyn and sets the date, time, and place for the public hearing on its establishment. Preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannan would amend the district plan of the Lincoln Square bid to change the method of assessment upon which the district charge is based and authorize additional services for the district. The resolution would also set the date, time, and place for the public hearing of the local law authorizing these changes. Preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannan would establish a partial 40-year Article 5 tax exemption for 1 building in Councilmember Salam's district. Preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannan would establish a new 40-year Article 11 tax exemption for a 22-story building in Councilmember Salam's district. Preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannan would establish a partial 40-year Article 11 tax exemption for 9 buildings in the districts of Councilmembers Lynn Shulman and Robert Holden. Preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannan would approve a new designation and changes in the designation of certain organizations to receive funding in the expense budget. Preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannan would determine a 1% increase in the base property tax proportion for fiscal year 2026. Preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannan would amend and restate the resolution computing and certifying base percentage, current percentage, and current base proportion of each class of real property for fiscal 2026 for the State Board of Real Property Tax Services. And a preconsidered resolution sponsored by Councilmember Brannan would authorize the City of New York to levy property taxes for fiscal year 2026 to fund city and county government operations and pay existing obligations in accordance with state and local law. Today, we'll vote on the following legislation. Resolution 969A, sponsored by Councilmember Kevin Riley, would designate October as Black Boy Joy Month in the City of New York to celebrate the resilience, intelligence, creativity, and potential of young black boys. Resolution 501A, sponsored by Councilmember Shekhar Krishnan, would call on the New York State Legislature to pass and the Governor to sign S2545A, A4846 to require school districts to send water safety information materials home to students, parents, or guardians and permit school districts to provide water safety instruction in school for K through 12 students. Resolution 852A, also sponsored by Councilmember Krishnan, would call on federal officials to halt Social Security Administration office closures, restore staffing and funding, oppose privatization efforts, and enact legislation to secure long-term financing of the Social Security program to protect seniors and individuals with disabilities who depend on these benefits. Resolution 1015, sponsored by Councilmember Carmen De La Rosa, would condemn all will condemn Alden Global Capital's cuts and managerial hostility towards unionized New York Daily News staff and call on the hedge fund to reach a contract deal with the newspaper's union. Introduction 1231A, sponsored by Councilmember Chris Banks, would require tax preparers to provide consumers with a receipt that includes an itemized list of all charges and fees. I invite Councilmember Banks to the podium to discuss his legislation.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. I'm happy to be here today for this opportunity to speak on my bill, Intro 1231. This bill would require tax preparers to provide consumers with a receipt that includes an itemized list of all charges and fees. It would also require tax preparers to give consumers an itemized statement prior to providing any tax services, detailing all costs associated with services that a preparer intends to provide. Importantly, the tax preparers would be required to offer these statements in both physical and electronic formats to ensure transparency and accessibility. This legislation came about after a tax preparation business owner reached out to my office regarding a case of a non-payment after services were rendered. Through that experience, it became clear that there was a gap in accountability and clarity between service providers and their clients. This bill is designed to close the gap, adding a layer of protection for both the business owner and the consumer, ensuring that all parties are fully aware of costs and expectations before the work is done. Transparency builds trust, and when residents seek out professional help for something that is as important as their taxes, they deserve to know exactly what they're paying for. At the same time, business owners deserve protection from disputes and non-payment. I'd like to thank the co-sponsors, Chair Menon, Council Members Felice, Lewis, Brooks Powers, Narcisse, Ung, and Caban for supporting this important piece of legislation. And together we're ensuring fairness, transparency, accountability are central to how we do business here in New York City. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Introduction 1016A, sponsored by Councilmember Eric Bottcher, would require the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to design graphic images to accompany the written warnings required by state law for gun dealers and licensing officers to display and disseminate. I invite Councilmember Bottcher to discuss his bill.
Thank you, Speaker Adams. One day in the not-too-distant future, someone is going to walk into the one of 14 gun stores in New York City to purchase a handgun. And he or she may be doing that because they think that that handgun will make them and their families safer in the homes. Because of the bill that we're passing today, they're going to see on the wall, for the first time anywhere in the United States, a required graphic image. This is inspired by cigarette packs in foreign countries. Public health messaging that has an image attached is exponentially more effective. So you can imagine what the image could have. It'll be developed by the New York City Department of Health. It's going to be required on all gun sellers in New York City. And that image may just get that person to think twice about bringing a handgun into their home. It could be an image of a toddler pulling a handgun out of a drawer next to a bed. If it saves one life, this legislation will have done its job. I believe it'll save many more lives. And when this is done around the country, cities and states around the country, and maybe one day nationwide, it could save thousands and thousands and thousands of lives, because 41,000 people died last year due to gun violence. We could do so much better as a country. In fact, it's a national shame that we are unique around countries around the world for the amount of people who die from guns. Let's make this bill the beginning of a national effort to get these warning signs on the walls of gun stores everywhere. I want to thank Speaker Adams and the legislative staff and everyone on my staff, the advocates who've helped make this possible.
Thank you. Introduction 1290A, sponsored by Councilmember Julie Menin, would establish a new license category for self-storage facilities. The annual license would cost $295. DCWP would enforce this law and would have the authority to suspend or revoke a self-storage facility license. Councilmember Menin is not here. Okay, we thank Councilmember Menin for her bill. Introduction 495A, sponsored by Councilmember Justin Brannan, would require self-storage facilities and storage warehouses to provide 60 days notice prior to increasing an occupant's storage fees and restrict termination of occupancies without explanation. Councilmember Brannan couldn't join us today, but we thank him also for his work on this legislation. Introduction 29A, sponsored by Majority Leader Amanda Farias, would require the Director of the Office to End Gender-Based Violence in consultation with the Fire Commissioner and Police Commissioner to develop a training program for first responders on how to recognize and respond to traumatic brain injuries that may result from domestic violence. I invite Majority Leader Farias to discuss her legislation.
Thank you so much, Speaker. For far too long, the link between domestic violence and traumatic brain injury has gone unrecognized, leaving survivors to live with invisible wounds that change how they think, feel, and function every day. But we've come a long way. My bill, Introduction 29, ensures that New York City finally responds to this reality with urgency, science, and compassion. This legislation was shaped by the work of Volunteers of America Greater New York, whose pilot program revealed that 4 out of 5 survivors in shelters screened showed injuries consistent with traumatic brain injury. Their findings made clear that domestic violence is not only an issue of safety, it is a public health crisis that affects the brain just as much as the body. Intro 29 establishes a training requirement for first responders, including the FDNY and NYPD, to recognize the signs of TBI in survivors of gender-motivated violence, and directs the Office to End Domestic and Gender-Based Violence to lead a citywide public awareness campaign so families can also help identify symptoms and access care. I'm ecstatic to be here in this place and in anticipation of this passage today, because this means New York City will finally have the tools to identify, treat, and prevent the silent injuries that have gone far too long unseen. It means our first responders will be better equipped, our communities better informed, and our survivors better supported. I'm incredibly grateful to VOA GNY for the core role they have played in helping us reach this critical point. They were my guiding lights, deeply experienced and unwavering in keeping us informed about the issues and nuances survivors face every day. Intro 29 sets a new standard for how New York City understands and responds to violence, seeing the connection, naming the harm, and building the pathway to real healing. I thank all my co-sponsors, obviously my partner, Speaker Adams, and everyone who helped us get to this point. We have a bipartisan bill that's first of its kind and hopefully will be replicated not only throughout New York, but throughout the nation. And we did that with over a supermajority of sponsorship. So thank you.
Thank you. Introduction 1132A, sponsored by Councilmember Oswald Feliz, would require the Department of Small Business Services to coordinate with city agencies to develop and deliver regulatory compliance assistance to small businesses within each borough. I invite Councilmember Feliz to discuss his legislation. Good to see you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Councilmember Oswald Feliz, proudly representing the Bronx, and also the chair of the Council's Committee on Small Business. Very proud of the many bills that we're voting on today, including my bill, Introduction 1132A, a bill aimed at helping protect our small businesses from unnecessary fines and regulations. Our small businesses are the backbone of our economy. They do so much for our local communities. They hire local people, they stimulate local economies, they also make communities vibrant, turning communities into places where people want to come to eat, shop, and spend time with their family. But they also face many different obstacles. They face obstacles specifically with regulations, which can seem very confusing and burdensome, especially for our newer businesses. My bill will help ensure that the city provides these small businesses with the resources that they need to help comply with the many regulations that apply, so that our small businesses can be able to focus on what they do best, which is hiring local people, stimulating local economies, making communities vibrant, and so much more. I want to especially thank our speaker, Adrian Adams. Thank you so much for always putting our small businesses first, and we look forward to voting on this and approving this later today. Thank you so much.
That'll be a great birthday present for you.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's so. Yeah.
Happy birthday. Introduction 111A, sponsored by Councilmember Alexa Aviles, would require the mayor or a designated office or agency to publish online and submit to the council an annual report on NYCHA dwelling units that were vacant during the immediately preceding calendar year. I invite Councilmember Aviles to the podium to discuss her legislation.
Good afternoon. Are you ready for the most sexiest bill you're going to hear about today? Yes. So today we're very excited to be voting on legislation 111A, which will require the administration to report on vacant units in NYCHA. This legislation will help us have the data we need to ensure that our most vulnerable New Yorkers have access to housing and hold the Public Housing Authority accountable for any units that sit idle while New Yorkers sleep on the streets. I'm so proud of the gains that we have made in the negotiations through this legislation that include understanding how many units have been vacant for 30 or more days at the district level, demographic data that lets us know whether these are family-size units, accessible units, or senior housing, whether these units have been tested for hazardous substances, and what efforts NYCHA has undertaken to ensure vacant units are promptly occupied. At a time when New Yorkers are struggling to find affordable housing and so many units have waited for years for a public housing apartment, while so many New Yorkers, a wait list of over 275,000 people, have waited for years for a public housing apartment, it is unacceptable that at this moment we have over 5,000 units that are sitting vacant without a clear understanding why. I want to thank the Speaker for helping to bring this to the floor today, to Chair Banks for his attention to this legislation, to all the advocates, and particularly to the tenants of New York City Public Housing, and all of my colleagues for their support in getting us here today. Thank you so much.
Can I fix your jacket?
Gracias.
Okay. We'll also vote on a package of maternal health legislation that emerged from our Maternal Health Steering Committee. Last October, I raised the alarm that maternal mortality in our city is a public health emergency. I've publicly shared my own mother's struggles with her birthing process and giving birth to me, which reflects on that of so many Black women and patients of color. In New York City, dozens of New Yorkers die during and after pregnancy. Black New Yorkers are 6 times more likely to die of pregnancy-related causes than white women. We can prevent these tragedies. These disparities are a product of medical and structural racism that leave Black women and other people of color, immigrant and low-income New Yorkers, at risk of losing their lives. This injustice is why my office and this council have prioritized the improvement of maternal health, convening the steering committee to build upon the existing work of advocates, midwives, doulas, providers, families, and community leaders. Today, after a year of convenings, the council is releasing a report that includes policy and budgetary actions and recommendations to help address this crisis. Ensuring maternal health for Black women and all New Yorkers requires that we improve its social determinants, from mental health and poverty to stable housing and opportunity. This means confronting persistent inequities in our city as we address affordability for all. We know the solutions to the maternal mortality crisis, and we understand that this is a complex issue that won't end overnight. It will take years of sustained commitment from leaders across our city and state, working in unison to fix the patchwork of challenges that allow so many to fall through the cracks. Addressing this public health emergency will require the next administration and the council to make it a priority. We owe it to our mothers, with whom there is no life to get this right. Resolution 1087A, sponsored by Councilmember Lynn Schulman, calls on the New York State Department of Health to conduct regular reviews of the New York Patient Occurrence Reporting and Tracking System data, and to require hospitals to retroactively fill in missing data. Resolution 1086A, sponsored by Councilmember Chio Say, calls on the State Department of Health to create a new and separate occurrence code for maternal mortality and to standardize the definition of events reportable to NY ports. Resolution 1085A, sponsored by Councilmember Mercedes Narcisse, calls on New York City Health and Hospitals facilities to report adverse maternal health events to NY ports based on an expanded and standardized definition. Resolution 1082A, sponsored by Deputy Speaker Diana Ayala, calls on the State Department of Health to confidentially share data regarding adverse maternal health events from NY ports and the New York City Maternal Mortality Review Committee. Resolution 868A, sponsored by myself, calls on the New York State Legislature to pass and the governor to sign legislation that mandates Medicaid to automatically authorize coverage of validated blood pressure cuffs and monitors for pregnant people and fully reimburse healthcare providers who assist patients in their usage. Resolution 867A, also sponsored by myself, calls on the New York State Assembly to pass and the governor to sign S-172A84, which would provide for annual increases of the weekly temporary disability insurance payments from January 1st, 2026 through January 1st, 2030. Resolution 64B, sponsored by Councilmember Tiffany Caban, calls upon the New York State Legislature to pass and the governor to sign legislation that enables community health centers to be fully reimbursed for telehealth care services. Introduction 1393A, sponsored by the Deputy Speaker, would require DOHMH to provide information to the public and non-obstetric health care providers on healthy living, nutrition, and managing chronic diseases during and after pregnancy. Diana here. Okay, we thank the Deputy Speaker for her legislation. Introduction 1146A, sponsored by Majority Whip Sylvana Brooks Powers, would require DOHMH to maintain a newborn home visiting program that offers free in-person and virtual visits from social workers, nurses, and lactation professionals to new parents during the first 12 weeks postpartum. Majority Whip Brooks Powers couldn't join us today, but we do thank her for her work on this bill. Introduction 1285A, sponsored by Councilmember Jennifer Gutierrez, would require DOHMH Commissioner to establish a program to provide free doula services to people in marginalized neighborhoods in all 5 boroughs to train individuals to become doulas and to help certain maternity hospitals foster a doula-friendly environment. Introduction 1284A, also sponsored by Councilmember Gutierrez, would require DOHMH to implement an education campaign for health professionals who provide care and support to patients during and after pregnancy about the safe use of medications to treat opioid use disorder. And Introduction 1001A, also sponsored by Councilmember Gutierrez, would require the creation of a multilingual automated text message system that can send parents and guardians reminders and guidance about their children's health and development, including information like recommended medical checkups, vaccination schedules, and deadlines for early childhood education and public school enrollment. I invite Councilmember Gutierrez to the podium to discuss all of her legislation.
Don't be surprised. You supported it. Thank you so much to our wonderful speaker and everyone here. I don't think you should be surprised that we're once again adding a sweep of bills to our maternal health priority here at the council, and it feels really important to be able to do that here today. So I don't know what's going outside right now, but at the council it feels really good. It feels really positive. We're doing great things. Almost 4 years ago when I was elected to the first majority council. We helped elect the first Black woman speaker. We were the most diverse city council ever. I was a mom for the first time. Oh, yes, of course. Yes, absolutely. I was a mom for the first time, and I realized that who is in the room and who is writing this legislation, speaking about it, really matters. Because from the very beginning, our Speaker Adams supported all of us and led with so much vision about how we were going to tackle Black maternal health, how we were going to support pregnant people, how we were going to support Black women, how we were going to keep them alive, how we were going to keep our hospitals responsible and accountable. And so I just want to thank you, because a lot of people had talked about it before Speaker Adams, and she has truly done all that work. And so I say that because representation matters, and who is in these conversations matters. And so I'm really excited to be able to pass these bills. This council, I think after today, I think we've passed 20 bills addressing maternal health. And I know we don't have it perfect, but we are getting there. And it is so impressive, and we should all be proud. And if you are a woman of color looking to have a child, know that the City Council is making it so that you and your family can be set up and so that it's safe. The Safe Pregnancy and Opioid Treatment Act came directly from the 2024 Maternal Mortality Review Committee's recommendations. I was floored to learn that a vast majority of women who were suffering, who were experiencing postpartum depression, and who were most in need of maternal health were also mental health, were also women that were experiencing addiction. And I don't think people were talking about it. And so it was really powerful to see that data and to be able to do something about it. So through this bill, there will be coaching, there will be information and resources for folks that if you're experiencing substance abuse, if you're experiencing opioid addiction, you are not alone, and you can do it safe. You can be pregnant, deliver your baby safely, and that there is help for you at the end. Text for Kids came from the nonpartisan 5-borough child care report. That is a bill that basically allows for people to opt in as a new parent if you want to be updated from the city on when is my kid's school application due? What does after school look like in 4 or 5 years? And I have learned that in more information that we provide for people, the better we are as a city. And so that's what we're doing here. We're listening to those who know best. We're turning data into policy, experience into care, and we will keep doing this together. I also just want to uplift that the doula program is started from an initiative that we were able to codify, and it's been really successful. We want to make sure that we're seeing it grow. Believe me, the doulas gave me an earful about what they would like to improve and change. And as someone who was lucky to have both a midwife and a doula, having an advocate in that space with you is invaluable. And so if we could offer that to more people and make that the standard and not the exception, I think we are a much more powerful city. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. That was good.
Oh, thank you.
Introduction 1134A, sponsored by Councilmember Shekhar Krishnan, would require agencies that collect demographic information from individuals through form documents to include additional race and ethnicity options. I invite Councilmember Krishnan to the podium to speak about this legislation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Speaker Adams. Today's legislation, Inch 1134A, rectifies an issue that has especially affected immigrant New Yorkers and especially Asian American New Yorkers. Too often, Asian Americans are lumped together in one box, invisible to the rest of the city. And this legislation ends that today, where we are invisible no more. It requires city agencies to collect more specific data based on race and ethnicity for all New Yorkers that come in and apply and use city services. And this way can more effectively track the needs of all New Yorkers, especially Asian American communities, and understand how to better provide services and capture that information. For decades, Asian Americans have not been seen in data, whether it's for government services or during the pandemic itself, for example, where accurate information to understand how COVID affected Asian American New Yorkers has never been studied. But this legislation changes that. It makes sure that all New Yorkers, and especially our Asian American communities, are seen, are visible, and it is a much needed and long-awaited step forward to make sure that we as a city are doing all that we can to carefully provide services for all immigrant communities and for all New Yorkers. I want to thank in particular CACF and the entire Invisible No More Coalition for their work on this bill, and also my predecessor in the City Council, former Councilmember Danny Drum, who started this work during his time in the Council as well. Thank you so much, Speaker Adams, for moving it forward, and appreciate all my colleagues' support.
Thank you. And I would like for Councilmember Sanchez to speak a little bit about the Kingsbridge Armory, because that proposal, that project has been years in the making, and I believe she's brought it across the finish line. So Councilmember Sanchez, tell us about this project, please.
Almost as old as you.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for being with me on this since before you. Well, you may have been elected, but I definitely hadn't been elected. Thank you so much. This is a dream. Maria, Ben, Kim, the whole team, Gerard, the team at the office, Brenda, Stephanie. You know, we're doing it up. I say, you know, we're in office, but I'm just a team member on Team Sanchez, and I really appreciate how hard you work. Thanks for being up with me last night at 1 a.m., arguing, haggling, pushing forward. To my partners in government, especially the Bronx delegation, Majority Leader, thank you for all those calls. And to Northwest Bronx Community Clergy Coalition, this really wouldn't be possible without your steadfast advocacy for the last 25 years. 30 years, just about, and the collaboration that together we accomplished, bringing together more than 50 organizations in the community, churches, mosques, parents, everybody was at the table trying to shape this. And so, you know, there have been 3 redevelopment attempts in the past. We had the benefit of hindsight here. We know what tanked the project in the past, and we strove to make sure that this go around is different. Today is a monumental day. It is not the end, and our work continues. But I just want to highlight that we have a historic $375 million in private and public investment in this project, $2.6 billion in economic impact that is going to benefit the Bronx so strongly, and 500 units of affordable housing. The agreement includes $130 million in a community benefits agreement. That's what it's valued at, one of the largest in city history, that ensures local hiring, good union jobs, support for small businesses, cultural programming, real community oversight. And it also includes new public investments, funding for our small business corridors, parks renovations, community safety initiatives, and an unprecedented expansion in after-school programs locally, because in District 14 of the City Council, over 75% of our children are living in poverty, are low-income children. And so, Speaker, I'll say this again in a bit, but this is so important to me because I'm dedicating this victory today to Nicolas Feliz Dominici, a 1-year-old baby who died in his daycare after exposure to fentanyl, just a few blocks away from the Kingsbridge Armory, a baby whose casket I still see when I close my eyes at night and I'm putting my baby to bed. This is for you, for your family. You deserve better. You deserve better from us, and we need to do better. And just 3 days ago, Pamela Almonte was killed in front of the Armory. These lives stolen from us by the violence and the neglect that have for too long defined our story, they need to change. This needs to change. We owe it to them, and this investment is for them and for the future of our children. And I don't know if you watching, hubby, but to DJ Dr. Dirty Dev, my husband, our 2 beautiful babies, Lalo and Yaya, you are my fight, my parents, our whole family that makes everything that we do as individual council members is enabled by their help. You are my heart and you are my why. So today I think, I say this often, but today I really feel like I'm living it. Possibility doesn't just exist, it is created. And this is an example of us creating possibility where everyone said that it couldn't be done. It's failed twice before. But this is a reflection of our collective hope, our shared struggle, and our dreams for the future. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Job well done. Gosh, I almost feel like I'm at the Academy Awards today. You know, but before we go into on-topic questions, I just really have to say, you know, a lot of folks, especially now, you know, with things that are going on and, you know, election and all that, talk about, you know, the legislative process and, you know, and all of, you know, just a lot of things that go into. This is the result of a very intentional legislative process. Yes, it took a long time. Perhaps it should not have taken that much time, but this is the beginning of how you get it right. When you have a council, a delegation, a council member who is committed and dedicated to their community, to their borough, to make sure that the work is done correctly. And now to look at us today kind of questioning that process, it really gives a lot of, it's just a very strange feeling. So with that, we will welcome on-topic questions.
On-topic questions, one LIC is off-topic.
If food stamps were raised in the preamble, is that considered on-topic?
Any question on the bill?
The bills.
Or the things that we're passing today? Great. Okay, off-topic.
Thank you.
Brief question if possible.
Go for it, Bob. Go for it.
It's not like you were on time right
No,
now.
We're trying to be.
Just to add some, the question about food stamps.
Yeah.
There's a lot of propaganda, particularly on the Republican side, that people who are getting food stamps are either 4 and 5 food stamp households, including a child or an elderly person or someone who's disabled. Over half of the non-disabled adults under 60 who get food stamps or SNAP benefits are actually working low-wage jobs. Many of them live here in New York. Could you talk about the connection that we're so fragile as a society that this can happen to people that work every day making 2 jobs?
Sure, and I can parallel that to the fact of so many families are in shelter. A woman with family, a husband and wife with children are in shelter. We can parallel those two things. This is the richest nation on the planet. And to think that we have to subsidize our residents to make sure that they are fed, to make sure that health care is gotten. It's to me personally, as a mother, a grandmother, it's a disgraceful thing. So, Bob, your question is well taken. I don't have the correct answer to that. I do know that we as a country have got to do better and put our people first. I would dare say that this city council has done exactly that, and we're going to continue to do that.
It's just a quick follow-up. Connecticut Congresswoman DeLauro has gone without her salary. There seems to be a time of need for moral clarity. Should Democrats in Washington take that extra step to be in solidarity with the people that are going to have a hard time meeting?
Well, I always have a hard time putting my thoughts and my feelings into a question like that and what others should do. If I was a representative, I would truly stand in solidarity with our people in need. That's just me. Hi.
I had a question about 2 pending bills. One is the new short-term rental bill by Councilwoman Cease, 948.
Yep.
I know this is an issue that homeowner-heavy districts in particular care a lot about. You were on a previous version of that bill. Do you want to advance that and do something on short-term rentals in the next couple months?
Thank you for the question. This is a new bill, and I always like to look at them, with new eyes, no matter how familiar they may seem. So, again, our line with it is the bill is going through the legislative process. It's very intentional. We're going to take a look at the bill, the new language, the stakeholders involved, and we're going to move forward from there. But, again, it's a brand new bill. We've got to look at it with fresh eyes, and we're going to move on from there.
And the second question is about your bill related to security guard wages that is going to get heard tomorrow. I've been already sent a lot of testimony from some of the business groups that are going to testify against it, based on I think their argument is that the city might not even have the authority to raise wages for certain classes of workers who aren't, in this case, who are W-2 workers, not independent contractors, like, for example, rideshare drivers or food delivery workers. Do you have any preemptive response to some of the criticism?
Well, we're no strangers to criticism, but this bill is extremely important in knowing the work that these folks do, in knowing that God forbid, but there is a potential for repeat performances of the horrible situation that took place in Midtown a couple of months ago. And for those that literally put their lives on the line, no weapons, no, Bob just had a question about, the cost of living. The cost of living for folks that would literally die for you and me, it needs to be addressed. That's what this legislation is all about. I stand by it, and we expect to pass the bill.
Can I ask you about council races next week and what you're watching for? There's only really a handful of...
I'm not in it, Bobby. I'm not interested. No, just kidding.
There's only a handful of seemingly competitive races, and a lot of council members, I think 16, are unopposed.
Yeah.
So does that tell us anything about state of democracy, or is it just a function of the fact that so many districts are really heavily Democratic? Although a couple of Republicans are also unopposed, Joe and Ariola and even...
Yeah. I think that, and it's interesting because I think that within your question was the answer also. All of the districts are different, yet many districts are very comfortable with their representation. I would like to think that representatives are doing their jobs and that that constituents are happy with their elected representatives, and those that may have presented themselves to oppose just did not foot the bill of, the satisfaction that they have with their current representation across the board.
Any races that you're particularly interested in or watching next week?
I think I'm going to leave the country for a couple of days. Well, I'm just kidding. I'm looking at everything. I'm a political junkie like you guys. So I don't miss a whole lot when it comes to political news, to be perfectly honest with you. And I'm interested in everything. So I'm going to be looking at everything, and we'll all see, as they say in my church, what the end's going to be. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.